So the outer is our capsule. Okay? If we're doing regions, we have our cortex, and then the inner medulla. Okay? Continue on with just structures right now. Here are your renal pyramids, with the tip of the pyramid being the renal papilla. Okay? Between each pyramid, you have your renal columns. So you'll have a column here, you'll have another column here, a little bit of a column here. Okay? When we talk about a renal lobe, okay, you're taking a section like this, so you're taking a column on either side of the pyramid. The pyramid itself, you'll get some cortex. So this would be a lobe, that would be another lobe, another lobe, another one, another one, another one, and another lobe. Okay? So you get some column on either side of the pyramid itself. You'll get some cortex, and obviously the pyramid is located in the medulla. Minor calyx, so the papilla points down into a minor calyx. Your minor calyx join together to form a major calyx. Your renal pelvis is in your hilum. Okay, the hilum is this region right here, just like in the lung. We had a hilum. Okay, here's where you'll have your renal artery, renal vein. Okay, the ureter is outside of the kidney. Okay, if we look at the different vasculature, okay, your renal artery branches into your segmental artery. So you have a segmental branch here, segmental branch here. Okay, interlobar artery, arcuate artery. Okay, the ones that arc over the pyramids are the arcuate. The ones that branch up into the cortex, depending on which book you use, you could call those cortical radiate arteries or interlobular. Your book uses the term cortical radiate arteries.
Well, isn't the interlobular the ones that are in between where the column is?
No, they'd be up into the cortex. So sometimes these are called interlobular arteries, but your manual uses cortical radiate as the term.
The ones by the
Interlobar are between the pyramids. Okay? The veins have the same names. So cortical radiate veins, arcuate veins, interlobar vein, segmental vein, renal vein. So make sure, once again, you have to say artery or vein. Don't just say interlobar. Don't just say renal. Okay, distinguish between the vein and the artery. Okay. These dots that are up in here, those are renal corpuscles. Here it's showing you your two different types of nephrons. So this whole section here is blown up right here in the middle. Okay. So once again, you can see some capsule, you can see cortex, and medulla. This branch artery here, okay, an interlobar artery. You get a little branch of an interlobar vein, an arcuate artery, and an arcuate vein. You have cortical radiate arteries, and here's a cortical radiate vein. Okay. Here is showing you a corpuscle opened up, so you can see the inner glomerulus surrounded by Bowman's capsule. Okay, so the yellow here would be Bowman's capsule. This would be the glomerulus. Okay, so off of Bowman's capsule, what's the first part of the nephron? The PCT. Okay, always start at Bowman's capsule. So whatever model you look at, this one, the one that's really weird looking with all those colors, always find the corpuscle. Okay, in this case it would be here. Remember, the corpuscle is made up of what two structures?
It's cortex in the middle.
Nope.
No.
The renal corpuscle is made up of Bowman's capsule and the glomerulus.
Right.
Okay? So together they make up a corpuscle. Okay? So you find your capsule, Bowman's capsule. Here's your PCT, the first set of tubes coming down. Okay, that's your descending limb. In this case, it's a thick descending limb giving rise to a thin descending limb. Okay, so once again, label it thin or thick. Okay, as you come back around this side, you get a thick ascending limb. Okay, so off of the PCT, you have a descending limb. In this case, it's thick, goes into thin. Coming around, going back up, your ascending limb, which is thick. DCT, right here. This little piece right here is your connecting tubule. It connects the nephron to the collecting duct. So this is your connecting tubule. Here's your collecting duct. Down here would be the papillary duct. Okay. What structure would be found down here? Well, this is the papilla. What?
Calyx?
Which calyx?
Minor?
Minor calyx. Remember, the tip of the pyramid, the renal papilla, drains into a minor calyx. Okay, so down here you'd have a minor calyx. Okay, this nephron here. Okay, here's Bowman's capsule. Here's your PCT. Okay, a thick descending, giving rise to a thin descending, thin ascending, thick ascending. Does everybody see that? Thin, thick. Okay. Then you get into your DCT, connecting tubule, collecting duct, papillary duct. Okay? If you look at some of the vasculature, okay, what would this one be? Because it's going into the glomerulus. That would be your afferent arteriole, because it's feeding the glomerulus. Okay? This one here is leaving the glomerulus, so this would be the what?
Efferent.
The efferent arteriole. Okay?
What are those branches off the collecting duct?
These would be other connecting tubules for other nephrons. Remember, how many nephrons do we have?
Oh, they're
We have
microscopic.
about 1 million nephrons.
Okay.
So here they're just showing you the two. So this one would be what type of nephron?
Cortical?
A cortical nephron, right? Because the majority of the nephron is found in the cortex, and the really long one going into the medulla would be your juxtamedullary. Okay, remember, 85% of them are your cortical nephrons. Okay? What we did here is we took one of these corpuscles and now we blew it up even bigger. Okay? So right here you have Bowman's capsule. This would be part of the PCT. This would be part of the DCT. What ends up happening, and it's hard to show it here, is the tubules are kind of in a three-dimensional pattern. Okay? So it's hard to show, but some of the tubule actually comes out at us, and it goes in different planes. Remember, we have coronal, transverse, and sagittal planes in our body. So these tubules kind of run in all different planes. So it's kind of hard to show on a two-dimensional model. Okay? That's why your DCT is coming out at you here. Okay? Here's your afferent arteriole. Okay, giving rise to your glomerulus. Here's the efferent arteriole. The cells of the DCT closest to your afferent arteriole, these down here, are called your macula densa cells. If you look back on page 645, okay, you have your juxtaglomerular complex, or JG apparatus, okay, whichever term you want to use. So these cells are going to be in communication with the cells here of the afferent arteriole. Okay, these cells right in here. There'll also be other cells in between, which will enable these two vessels to communicate, respond to blood pressure changes, respond to changes in concentration of different filtrate. Okay? So that's what your JG complex will help us do. Okay? Right in here where the pen is now, that's called capsular space, or it was capsular space, okay, between the glomerulus and Bowman's capsule. Okay, remember, everything that comes in through the afferent arteriole just gets pushed, boom, right into the capsule, gets filtered right out of the blood. Okay, we'll be going over more of that in lecture on Thursday. Okay, but due to the pressure that's coming in through the afferent arteriole, everything that's in the blood just gets filtered out into the capsular space, and as the filtrate starts to go through the PCT and through the rest of the nephron, things get reabsorbed, tubular reabsorption back into the blood. Okay, because we don't want to get rid of all our glucose. We don't want to get rid of all our important things that we want to keep. Okay? Covering on this side, okay, you have your visceral, okay, epithelium. Okay, it's covering the glomerulus. The parietal epithelium is more covering the outside part of the capsule. If you look on the glomerulus, those that have the models in front of you, you see these blue dots. Okay, those are called podocytes. Each podocyte have finger-like projections called pedicels. Okay, so imagine that your two palms are podocytes, your fingers are pedicels. They kind of come in contact like this. Okay, we talked about these a little bit when we talked about the different types of capillaries. Between the fingers are slits or openings. Okay, those are called filtration slits. The red line on the model represents filtration slits. On either side of the line, okay, are the pedicels, those finger-like projections. Stay. Let me just have that plaque. On this plaque over here, basically it's showing you, okay, your two kidneys. Obviously you have your adrenal glands up top. Here are your ureters coming into the bladder, okay? The muscle that forms your bladder, that's your detrusor muscle. So when you need to urinate, that muscle just squeezes the bladder and helps you urinate. You have a triangular region in the middle, that's called your trigone. Each ureter will open at the top two corners here, and you'll have a urethral open at the bottom of this triangle. And inside the bladder, you have rugae, just like in the stomach, which helps in expansion, okay, of the bladder. In this model, this sphincter up, this is the internal urethral sphincter here. The external would be at the bottom, so you'd see that more probably on the reproductive models. Okay, but this is the one that's involuntary. The voluntary one would be below the prostate, which is right here. Okay, this is part of the prostatic urethra right here. And I think that's it on this model. This model looks like it would be tough, but it's not that bad if you follow the rule that these are the corpuscles. Okay? So if we find a corpuscle right here, okay, off of the corpuscle, what would be the first set of winding tubes called? PCT. So all this brown here would be a PCT. Okay? Here's a corpuscle. So all the brown here would be PCT. Here's another corpuscle. All the brown would be PCT. Okay? Always orient yourself by finding the corpuscle. As you go down, what's the first set of tubes going in a downward called?
Descending.
So your descending tubule. So here you have a thick descending tubule going into a thin descending tubule. We come around, you get a thin ascending tubule into a thick ascending tubule. The last set of winding tubes is called the DCT, your connecting duct, and these would be collecting ducts, and then eventually papillary duct.
Where's the loop of Henle?
This whole thing is the loop of Henle made up of your descending and ascending limbs. Okay, on this side, okay, here's your PCT, a thick descending, thin descending, thick ascending, DCT, connecting duct, collecting duct, papillary duct. Okay? Now if you look at it from afar, Okay? All this is up in the cortex.